Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever this podcast may find you. It is I, as always, Gavin.
And I, Justin.
And we're back here. we're back to being or recording it to do in two separate places. Part of this is kind of a fun exercise just to see what we are capable of and what we can do. Um, Also, I had a busy day and didn't really want to drive up to Syracuse.
Don't blame you, especially when it was just this, and since you had other stuff going on, you would have had to commute back regardless.
Dude, yeah, okay, so this morning was Park City Cars and Coffee. So that being up in, Park City, and I'm going to mute my phone.
Gotcha.
Um, but yeah, so that was that. I actually got brunch or like breakfast sandwiches with our good buddy Jaden. Got to have a good catch up sesh with him, so that was good. That was well needed. Um, and then I came back home and like took this massive power nap and then woke up and drove down to Harriman, the opposite direction of Syracuse by a good chunk. It's probably what, an hour drive from Harriman to up to you.
Roughly, yeah, because when I've had to commute there to do details, it ends up about an hour, mainly just because of the westward commute, because it just
Yeah,
takes so long.
yeah, I mean, a lot of it too is you're stuck on either Bangor or I guess you could take Bacchus
Yeah,
if you really wanted to, but you still have to commute eastbound again, going north. Um, but yeah, so I did my first photo shoot with film. Someone actually paid me money to take pictures on an old and extremely outdated medium.
well, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was cool. This dude Braden, who has first of all, shout out Braden. He has a red R53 Mini Cooper with a supercharger on it, and it revs all the way out to 8 grand.
So
It's a fucking screamer.
yeah, that's a bit of a stretch. Holy shit.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's making in the neighborhood of like 300 or so horse,
Okay.
which is like not something to wave a finger at. That's definitely a considerable amount of power, and especially in a car that small.
Yeah.
So I want to drive that someday. I didn't drive it today. We just drove up Butterfield Canyon, which is on the south end of the Oakers, like in the mountains. That was my first time there. So it was cool to like discover a new road that I hadn't been up. It's some really narrow sections, and then it goes up to. We didn't even go anywhere near the top, but there's a top, and then after the top, it becomes a dirt road. Apparently, that would be decent for like. I mean, you could take your or your taco, if the all track actually had stock wheels and tires
Yeah.
and wasn't on rotiforms. You could totally take it through there. Apparently, my old Forester would have been fine there. It's like more of a fire road than an off-road trail.
Yeah.
But so yeah, drove up there and took some photos. I had my AE1 program for those that know film cameras and are aware of the film world. Had my AE1 program and a 28 millimeter FD lens, not named after the Mazda. I think that came first, actually.
That's
It
funny.
did come first. Yeah, so the lenses that you and I use, Justin, are EF lenses. And before EF was a thing, EF came out in the 90s, I think. It had to have. It came out like at least when my Rebel G came out in like the mid 90s. And the AE1 program was made into from the late '80s at least into like the early mid '90s. So and that used an FD mount. So
Okay.
uh, yeah. Anyways, took some photos with that, and I also brought my 5D Mark IV. So that was the first time I shot someone else's car with the 5D Mark IV. So yeah, it feels good to check off some new boxes. Hadn't done a shoot with Braden before, but I kind of always wanted to. Uh, had never been to Butterfield Canyon, had never taken photos on film of someone else's car, had never, and same thing with my new full frame DSLR. So, yeah, checked off some new boxes today.
Okay. No, that's awesome. I mean, especially film, because I think we mentioned last time when we were talking about some of your film stuff, like it's one of those things that's coming back, kind of like some other things have made a comeback, such as
Yeah,
vinyl.
like vinyl.
Mhm.
Yeah, vinyl for sure.
That's a real big one. That's pretty popular and common to see in other
Mhm.
mediums. In fact, we even discussed like other potential things that could come back where since we're losing most like tactility and mechanicalness of things in the nature of progress, you lose the almost what I would almost call it the satisfaction, the mechanical satisfaction of something occurring.
Yeah. Oh, actually, let me. So I don't have any film in my other film camera that I have, but I want to see if I can record it.
Okay,
Hold on.
yeah, it's gonna be fun ASMR. Because yeah, like I personally miss some stuff, and
Thank you, dear listeners, for holding on to that.
mm-hmm.
So like I'm holding a camera in my hands right now. It's called an FT. It's an FT Canon. It was built between like 1967 and 1972, um, somewhere in there. So late 60s, early 70s. I don't have any film in it, so I'm totally okay with like firing off the shutter and all that stuff.
Yeah,
But I want to see if you can like listen to this. Did you get that?
yeah, oh yeah,
So that was just me winding the roll back, or what would be the roll, and then this is the shutter.
that's
That was a 1 second exposure. So let me go to like a 250. Like that's the sound that everyone's iPhone is trying to emulate,
yeah,
but it's real.
yeah, and that's
So
that's the kind of stuff that you end up missing, and we have to like recreate once we either electrify or automate something.
well, it's interesting because Gordon Murray, with his T50 and T33 supercars, are high revving V12 manual gearbox supercars. And then you also have companies like Koenigsegg that have this weird halfway middle ground between a fully automatic gearbox and an actual manual gearbox that you can stall, you can clutch kick it, you can do massive burnouts apparently. Um, so even in cars that are like brand new, barely even out yet, and are millions and millions of dollars, we're still going backwards, as it were, to the manual gearbox.
And I think it's funny that yes, it did end up with, I believe it's dual clutch, but how many efforts Pagani went to make sure that that shifter in the Huayra still felt mechanical.
The Huayra was that was a dual clutch, and now the new, oh, what the fuck is it called?
I saw the pictures of it. Let's see. I will pull it up.
It's like a Utopia or something.
Yeah, it's the Utopia. Yep.
Yeah, I think that is back to a manual. I think they also went back to stick. I think. I'm pretty sure. Wherever my phone is.
Then we also had the other unveiling this week, the Mustang, which naturally still retains a stick. No surprises there.
That's true, but the EcoBoost is automatic only. They didn't sell enough manual EcoBoost, which I find strange because I feel like if some like the enthusiasts that'd be going after EcoBoost would want it to be a stick.
Yeah, because you could definitely
Like a V6 automatic, like that kind of makes sense because like if you're buying a V6 Mustang, you kind of don't care about performance,
yeah.
so automatic it is. But for the kind of buyer that would want an EcoBoost, you would think that they would maybe know that the EcoBoost is also like in their hot hatches,
Mm-hmm.
and they would want like the tunability and modability of like the hot hatch, but in a rear wheel drive platform like a Mustang. You would think. At least I would think.
Yeah, and I just pulled it up. The new Pagani is offered with either a they call it an AMT or automated manual transmission or pure manual.
So like a dual or either single or dual clutch gearbox or a manual.
Yep.
So that's cool.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good to know. So if you have millions and millions of dollars, you already know that this thing exists, and you probably already have one.
Or have your dude ordering one for you.
Well, yeah,
You know.
yeah, already spoken for.
Exactly.
So
Because that's how these things go.
yeah, they're all spoken for. Well, Justin, did you have anything you wanted to like discuss today?
I did. Couple things. First and foremost, just kind of a fairly quick one because I think there's a couple funny notes about it. The new Grand Tour episode.
Oh, did you see it?
I did.
What'd you think?
I thought it was. I thought it was a fantastic kind of return to form in a way.
Yeah, I feel like people keep saying that about Grand Tour episodes because they kind of are a return to the Top Gear, the big specials. That's kind of just what the Grand Tour has turned into.
Mm-hmm.
However, do you remember hearing in the news about James wrecking his Evo?
I do remember, like, whenever that actually happened, I do remember seeing it, but I don't.
Yeah.
I don't actually remember reading it at the time and going all the way through. I just knew he had a wreck. Was all I recalled.
Yeah. I kind of forgot about that until they were in the tunnel, and I was like, "Oh, no fucking way they do like he wrecks it here." And then he slid into the walls like, "Oh god." And it looked like looking at the in-car, like he took a hit. Like that was a serious like fuck the car. Like who gives a shit about the car?
Yeah.
Like his head took a fucking blow.
We actually went back a couple times and looked, and yeah, his head smacks basically the rear of the window and the B pillar pretty hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's like, yeah, I mean, to be fair, both him and the car took it like champs, and James literally walking out of that is astonishing.
It really was. I mean, he took it better than the car. I mean, they had bent control arms and, all sorts of shit. I'm surprised the frame was as straight as it was.
Yeah.
At the end of that.
Like that.
But how did you, as the other member of Exhibition of Speed, feel about
I know what you're
Clarkson
gonna say.
going on about the RS4 and how it was one of the greatest the Audi 4.2 in that car was one of the greatest engines ever made.
Funny thing. The second he said that, I was laughing. For several reasons. Number one, because of our whole 4.2 Audi film and all the crap we went through with that and all the feelings we had making that. And number two, because for some reason, his original review of the RS4 sticks out to me and always has quite heavily, where he races two mountain climbers up a mountain and then back down. And on the way back down, as the mountain climbers are actually parachuting back down to the bottom,
Paragliding,
yeah. He's going on and on about like just how amazed he is that Audi has made something that doesn't feel like an absolute boat. And in that, he even says, better than an M3? I think so, which is really high praise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially from someone like him who will always take, rear wheel drive over all wheel drive, and especially where the placement of that engine is and how far forward it is. He's just that kind of person that will always take the, a smooth inline six over and rear wheel drive over a heavy front end and all wheel drive. So the fact that he said that about the RS4, back on the Top Gear days was pretty astounding.
And now 15 years later, they do this. And, I could see what happened in the back room where they're probably like, okay, there's two obvious...
They have to force a bit.
Yeah, there's two obvious choices, but Audi hasn't actually done any rallying in years, so what the hell do we do? And I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, neither has Subaru or Mitsubishi.
Yeah, but
Subaru pulled out like 12 years ago.
Yeah, they've still kept that, I don't know if you want to call it brand image or whatnot, though, much more than Audi. Where they
have
not necessarily from an advertising standpoint, but more like the community has still kept that going effectively.
I think. Well, kind of
more than Audi is all I'm saying. Whereas Audi has fairly completely ditched the rally portion of their.
Yeah, but they still make turbo 5-cylinders.
Yeah, they do, but they're all for sport now. Nothing is really geared.
That's what rally is. Sports is a sport. It's a sporting driving.
I'm talking about tarmac sport. Like they're all for tarmac driving now and everything like that. Not as much for what they used to be known for. But either way, I wouldn't be surprised if when they're trying to figure out what other car to find out or to include in this trio and then decide, okay.
I still think that Subaru has walked away from their history more than Audi has. But
fair.
That's just me.
Yeah, fair. I wouldn't be surprised if it was Clarkson that was like, you know what, an RS4.
Because
Because looking at how much he praised the car in this review, how much he praised the car 15 years ago, and
Yeah.
clearly it stuck with him. And the fact he felt it bold enough to say that was in his top 3 engines of all time, that's
It
bold
makes me
praise.
wonder. I know this is kind of like stroking our own ego here, but I'm just asking the question.
You're spitballing.
I'm asking the question. Jeremy Clarkson, have you seen our films?
I mean, here's the thing with the moderate amount of views it has now. It's not crazy, it's not viral, nothing like that. But it does
It's
have
410,000.
it has enough now that it's not unlikely necessarily, you know.
Well, and inside sources told me that Brian Scotto from the Hoonigans has seen and approved of the video.
Yeah, which is also cool because I heard a similar thing from a different inside source, funny enough. But yeah, like I was just really happy when he said that, and when like the conclusion and everything went through, and like even what he did to the car and how it, you know, I thought it was really cool that he kind of tried to bring the old livery back on an RS4.
Yeah, with like all the pod lights and stuff up front.
Mm-hmm.
that
And
was pretty cool.
the the exhaust and everything like that. Like I thought it was great. My only complaints really about the actual episode itself weren't anything major. One thing was the there was some serious special effects used for the fire on his RS4. Like there was some things done in post, definitely.
Hmm.
Which I'm not surprised because I'm sure we know the car did throw flames because if you look at a couple different scenes, it looks different. But as we both know, because we film things, like flames like that are one of those things that's got to be stupid difficult to capture on camera, especially in snow,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's just whited out
Well,
everywhere.
granted, when that was happening, though, it wasn't in the sun. It was definitely with overcast,
True. Um,
which makes it a lot easier. And the source for something like a flame, like that wasn't just an exhaust. Like there was something shooting fire back there.
yeah.
God knows what the trunk looked like. You know, what
Hmm.
kind of rig was in the trunk of that thing. Um, I gotta be completely honest with you, and this is showing a little bit of vulnerability to literally anyone that was listening
Yeah.
or that is listening. Um, I was fucking stoned as shit when I watched that, so it looked real to me.
No, for sure. It wasn't the worst I've ever seen by far. It was just
I'm gonna have to, and I want to rewatch it, like not stoned.
yeah,
Like I want to. I might do that tonight. Actually, we'll see. But
yeah. I mean,
yeah,
I think overall it was great. And when I say that it was a return to form, I actually I don't know if I've said that quite as much about the other ones, but more about this one where they definitely tried to throw in a bit more antics than they did in the last couple. Um,
okay,
where like the whole the whole plot that moves along through several different pieces in this film of them sleeping in places they weren't supposed to be.
right.
You know, little things like that that have kind of been absent from the last couple, mainly because the last couple have been more thematic, like the French cars and things of that nature. They had
Or the boats.
or the boats. They had their own stuff to carry them with, so they didn't
Hmm.
need those quite as much. Whereas this was much more classic Top Gear style in quite a few ways.
This was honestly, and I feel like I keep saying this about Grand Tour episodes and then kind of walk it back,
Hmm.
but I think I'm gonna stick to my guns and say that this is probably the best Grand Tour they've done. Probably.
Yeah,
At
and
least since they've gone to like the big the big specials instead of doing like the whole seasons like they did like when they started.
hmm
Like this is definitely the best of those, I think, for sure.
I think so. I think the other ones were really cool experiments. The French one was pretty hilarious. The boat one was a complete departure, but I think they did it well, being what it was.
They did it well. The French one was okay. I wasn't super into it. Or like the big land barges through Scotland
Yeah.
at the beginning of COVID. Like that was like okay. Like I watched it and I enjoyed it because it's kind of like when you have that favorite music artist like when you're a kid and like
Hmm.
they're just putting out bangers and then you get older and like you should be watching it because it's the thing that you know that you love, but like if you zoom out from an objective point of view it's like it's like mid, you know. That's kind of how I felt about some of the ones like Carnage Artois
Yeah,
and the ones through like the beginning of COVID and like the boat ones, especially when they were. What was the one they were in South America with like the Bentley and the Focus RS?
that one I agree with. I wasn't the biggest fan of that one.
Yeah, like cinematically, one of their best. Like the shots that they were getting, the stuff like hanging out of helicopters and stuff,
Oh yeah.
like amazing. But as far as like storytelling and like getting through the videos, like meh. But this one Scandy flick, honestly, my favorite.
And I have a little background because literally an hour ago, just before we started getting ready to record this podcast, I actually ran across a YouTube video that was Andy Willman getting interviewed by an Australian news outlet just a week ago,
Hmm.
um,
Yeah.
about their craziest Top Gear moments, and he talked about a couple of them, like going through the South with the truck, the Camaro, and the Cadillac, where they painted the stuff on the side and tried to accept people. He went through a few of them, uh, but he started explaining that with the Scandi flick, ironically, the reason that the American land barges happened was because the Scandi flick was literally supposed to start filming the week that COVID happened.
So that was just a way for them to quickly detour and go like, well, fuck, we'll shelf this for another time.
Yes, so and it was originally supposed to be set in Russia, where they escaped from a gulag.
Whoa,
Yes, but
that's cool.
if anybody knows 2022 recent history, we know that that's not possible. So they had to
I mean, they could have just filmed it in Kiev.
they could have, but they had to rethink that as well. So basically, they took the concept, shelved it, took it back out, realized, oh fuck, we can't go to Russia anymore, changed the
Yeah.
location, and then kind of more designed it to be a little more rally centric and kind of ditched the actual story just to focus more on the cars, which I think was fantastic and worked out well. Um, and then he also went on to talk about James's crash, and he said the crazy thing is, at the moment that that crash or that they were doing that bit filming in the tunnel, I was
Hmm.
I was down the road in another building on a Zoom call because I was arranging stuff to go on with the planes that happened at the end of the episode.
Mm.
And so I'm on a Zoom call with this gentleman who's asking me questions about how are we on safety? Are we up to date on insurance and permits? We're going through all
Sure.
these different things and whatnot. And literally, as we're talking about the safety section, in walks one of the not the producers, one of the cameramen, and just belts out, "Oi, James has had a bad one. James has had a fucking bad one. Come on!" Right as they were talking about the safety section to the plane dudes.
Jeez.
Because he's like, I was sitting there promising the plane dude that, like, dude, we're number one on safety. We've had like we've had a couple incidents, but no one has ever gotten seriously hurt on a Grand Tour thing. He's not obviously not referring to the Top Gear stuff because Hammond had his things, and Hammond's
Well,
amazingly
Hammond had an off on was that Top Gear when in the Ramats?
no, and that was actually the
That was
first.
Grand Tour.
Yes, but like he fared relatively well for that compared to some of the Top Gear ones. So
Hmm.
Andy was basically going through all that right as the dude ran in to tell him about James.
Oh my god.
Oh, and so he's like, well, I've got something to deal with. I'll call you later. Click, and just
My
ran.
god.
Um,
Jeez.
but yeah. Anyways, I just watched that video, so I thought it was funny to get a little background on like some of the other shit they dealt with and how that video was supposed to come out 2 years ago, but COVID cock blocked it, which happened with a lot of things.
Like with many things.
Hmm. And then the final portion of that was, I do have to say that um, I don't necessarily know if I would pick a favorite out of those three cars in the show. However, that Evo deserves an honorable mention because whatever they had to do to get that thing back on the road after the two incidents that it had.
I wonder how long it was actually under the knife for.
Agreed, because that's one thing that movie magic hides is there's no way
Well,
that
and that's always my first question too. Is like, okay, how long have they been there for? Did they stay? Did they go back home for a little bit and like then fly back out and finish the video?
hmm
Um, that's kind of always the first question that pops into my mind. I mean, I'm sure a lot of it was rushed and not rushed, but you know, long hours, long days of just like getting it done. Um, and how is it really, under the skin? What can't we see? Um, it makes me curious if literally any corners were cut at all, for the sake of brevity. Um,
So
but yeah.
my eagle-eyed viewerness did notice two things that I think were cut. Number one, um, afterwards, that front right had a quite at least 2, maybe even 3 degrees of camber after it was quote unquote fixed, which leads me to
Hmm.
believe they were able to source a lower control arm, possibly even just from like a regular ass Lancer or something, who knows, but source something because that one was completely fucked. But they might not have fixed the upper control arm.
That might be.
And then secondly, the only other thing I noticed was that the oil cooler that they put on was just a quick, cheap aftermarket one where they probably just cut hoses, stuck them on, and probably just used hose clamps and sent it. Because I mean, my if I had to think about it, I bet you it was probably under the knife for 3 days or so.
Which is fast.
It was just still fast.
That's still that is hauling ass
But
on
I
that build.
But I bet you what they did is like, okay, get a cheap oil cooler, run it through, make sure that like no major oil or anything goes in, find a control arm for the lower end, probably just from a regular ass Lancer or something like that. Then
Yeah, and that's the thing about doing a build for, or I guess a bandage build. I guess you could call it,
yeah,
instead of doing a full surgery, because it's not like this car has to last another 100,000 miles. It's got to last a few days until the video's done, and then they can ditch it
yep, exactly.
if they decide to.
It's kind of like race car mechanics. Can it make it to the end of the race? Cool.
Yeah, I wonder if James would actually keep that car like later.
Yeah, I mean the fact that the other thing I was thinking about, the fact they actually even got those doors to close somewhat is amazing. I noticed
Hmm.
they didn't seal all the way because on some of the snow stuff as well as in the water or just even some of his driving, you can see that the top of the driver's door is definitely curved out from the crushed B pillar a little bit.
Hmm.
But the fact that it closed at all after that is not bad. So I do have to give like props to that Evo for surviving all the shit it did.
No kidding. I also did enjoy seeing that car in that shade of yellow. That was a beautiful, just like before it wrecked at all.
Hmm.
Like it was a really properly pretty car. I've never been into Evos at all. Um, that's not been like my flavor. I've always preferred STIs, and seeing the STI when it first showed up on camera, it kind of brought me back some nostalgia from like when I was, so at the time that I was getting into cars, like in general, was in like the mid 2000s. It was like from 2002 or so to like '05, where like really when I was like learning a bunch of things about cars. So I was subscribing to Car and Driver and bringing those to school.
Yeah.
That's when my dad had his Porsches. It's like when a lot of like that fundamental, car enthusiast was being, brewed inside of me. And I remember when the Blob Eye STI was like brand new and seeing it at like Nate Wade Subaru in Salt Lake, and it brought back memories of that, and it made me want one. Like seeing Hammond in that, I was like, "Oh, that's fucking cool." Like I wanted. I actually, for the very first time, or not, maybe not the very first time, but one of the few times, I've genuinely like was salivating over all three of the cars that those guys had.
No, I mean all three of them. Like, I've been a lifelong Audi guy, or we'll call it a petrol head long Audi guy because I've mainly been into them since I've been able to drive. But I can't say that I would necessarily not pick the other two in certain circumstances either because they were all great examples of the cars. And I also thought it was funny that both Hammond and May brought up that like, yeah, if you go post this on any online forum, one of us, all like at least half of the people are likely to tell me that we chose the wrong one.
Yeah,
which
yeah,
which is because both of those cars have quite a few different iterations and generations and quite a few different fan bases that conglomerate into one.
mm-hmm.
And
Yeah. Probably the STI over the other two,
yeah,
because it had such a longer run here in the states and so many different, very specific generations. You know, I mean, there are diehard Evo people
yep.
and like Evo and DSM people, and there's obviously people that are 4.2 fans, as we know.
Hmm.
If you're listening to this, you probably R1. Um, but yeah, no, it was like one of the few times where I'm like, all three of those look fucking awesome.
They're-
Like a white blob eye with gold wheels, like, dude,
yeah, that's awesome. And then that, like you said
gimme.
earlier, that beautiful shade of yellow on that Lancer,
Mm-hmm.
and then just an RS4.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, I like the blue RS4 better,
agreed.
but you know.
I mean, I liked it better. Like I said, I liked it better once you threw the livery on it. I think, especially with that car being
The livery was
the
cool. The
gray,
livery was cool.
it was the livery really knocked it out of the park because that
Mm-hmm.
car was definitely a boring gray to begin with.
Yeah, like many Audis.
Like many Audis, yes. Because out of all of my Audis, I haven't owned a colored one because I have gray, steel gray, and then pearl white. They're all
Yeah, your pearl white is definitely the most interesting out of the three for
mhm.
sure. Oh, but by the way, side tangent. Did you see on Cars and Bids today there was a URS4 that went up for sale?
I did not. Let me pull that up.
Yeah, it was a URS4 with your same I forgot the name of it, color interior. Um
They call it Ecru.
Ikaru.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Because
Weird name.
German.
Ikaru sounds like a bird. Am I like tripping? Like that sounds like that would be the name of a bird.
I've thought that same thing, and I think it's just because it's so close to emu.
I probably.
But yeah, it's a pretty clean car, and he's got the proper 5-spokes on it, not the boring wheels that mine came with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is probably about the same condition mine's in. Like a little bit of rust.
It looks similar.
Yeah, a little bit of rust. Few like very minor
Except
dents.
it probably runs properly though. That's the difference.
Yeah, probably.
I just had to twist the knife.
Oh yeah. No, I mean if it's on Cars and Bids, I hope it would.
Yeah.
Let's see. He's got the boring steering wheel though. He's got the boring big square airbag steering wheel, whereas I have the nice 3-spoke. Okay, interesting. Like, it's cool to see these, and it'll be interesting to see what it goes for. It's it's at 7,500. Who knows where it'll actually
What do you think
go.
it'll go for?
Let's see how many miles. It's got almost the same. Jesus Christ! It's got almost the same miles of mine as well. I'm gonna guess. I hope these don't go stratospheric. That would be ridiculous. I doubt this car would as well. I'm gonna say 12. No more than 12.
Okay.
Most of them, if they're going for over 15, 16, like there have been a few that have touched 20 on Bring a Trailer, but those are usually sub 100K, 1 or 2 owner, beautiful cars,
Yeah.
the normal song and dance. Whereas this one's honestly a well cared for driver. Where paint's intact, minimal rust, allegedly runs and drives great, but definitely has a little bit of driving wear. So, I'll be curious. I'll pay attention to it. But I just remembered the other thing I had to talk about, which is kind of interesting. So, either listeners or you, Gavin, we have talked several times over the past couple months about shady dealers, shitty companies, shitty operations, like companies not really doing good things to either their customers or in the end themselves by not selling their cars properly, not honoring warranties, not there's tons of different stuff you could throw in this category. Specifically with us, it was tons of people trying to pre-order cars in this interesting era that we currently live in and just getting dropped by the wayside in one form or another, right?
Yes.
So, I am a big tech person, and something interesting happened in the tech world this week, literally 2 days ago, actually. So, the 16th of September on Friday, that I wish would happen in some way to more automotive companies. So, basically, to make a long story short, NVIDIA is a company that makes graphics cards for computers, not just for gaming, but for workstations, stuff like that. And they have their longtime partner or their biggest supplier that helps them make graphics cards is a company called EVGA, which was founded in California by a bunch of enthusiasts and has really grown to be an extremely well-renowned name in the tech community as fantastic customer service. They, for a while, offered lifetime warranties on their cards, or even if like your card was 5 or 6 years out of date, and it died, and they didn't have the same card to repair it, like replace it with because it's old, they would upgrade you. And like some of the best warranty support or general support you'll ever get, really beefy designs, etc., etc. Just all out outstanding company run by enthusiasts. Um, well, they've been paired with NVIDIA for 22 years, but on Friday,
Wow.
through only three, I mean, effectively, you could call them independent journalists with the way they were acting, but three YouTube tech media outlets, they invited three individuals and announced to them that they are severing ties with NVIDIA completely.
Why?
Because NVIDIA, being the large conglomeration it is that's run by shareholders, has started to act like quite the bully. So they, a couple generations ago, like about 4 or 5 years ago, they started making their own in-house cards. Slowly but surely, their own in-house cards have now gotten more price competitive than the aftermarket board partner cards that have always been a thing. And they've just been slowly controlling more and more out of what any of these board partners can do with their cards, to the point where these guys that are creating a product wouldn't know how much, like, the actual graphics processor die that they have to buy to make their product would cost to them until the public release. So these guys have to basically are told to, here's this die, you won't know how much it costs, but you have to make it to our exact specifications. You have to throw it on a card. By the way, not only do you not know how much that die is going to cost you that you have to design a board for, but on top of that, you also have to stay within a price range, which, by the way, we're not going to tell you until after launch is announced, which is only a month away from being ready to go. Oh, and by the way, we control your box art. Oh, by the way, you can't do any experimentation. Anyways, list goes on and on.
Jeez.
Extremely domineering and controlling stuff. And this isn't completely news. This stuff's been leaking out for a while that the NVIDIA Corporation has gotten ridiculous. But EVGA is the only American-based large manufacturer for electronics. And 78% of their volume was graphics cards. So
if the price of graphics cards hasn't been, astronomically blown out of proportion to begin with, it's like this is just the beginning.
It is, and they basically announced this through, like I said, a couple YouTube outlets, and their basic thing was, on principle, based on the fact that our company has a good reputation, and we stand by our products more than we stand by continuing to have an abusive relationship, we're cutting all ties. We will not be making any from here on out whatsoever. We are dropping that. But they even doubled back and said, because of the last couple generations, they've actually pocketed quite a bit of cash. They will not be laying off any employees whatsoever. They'll be repurposing anybody they can. I hope that's actually true. Anyways.
Yeah.
So massive random shock where this was like released through, not through the general news media, but through three independent YouTube outlets. And I kind of wish, the whole time that I was looking at this, I kind of wish that two things would happen in the automotive world. Number one, that more either individuals or dealers or companies would take a stand on any given direction to fight who the bully is. So, for instance,
Well, Ford is starting to.
So,
at least Jim Farley is, really cracking down on dealerships, with ADM, with dealer markup. Hopefully that is a trendsetter.
Yeah.
For sure. Hopefully he's a trendsetter and people are able to get into cars at, what is actually an advertised price from the manufacturer.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, the way that I view this, and I think you probably view this too, the passion and the enthusiasm and the differentiation in between cars should be done completely by the manufacturer, and the buying process. Like, people can do their own research, they can watch videos, they can read articles, they can do whatever. That should be its own thing, and the design and the marketing and the production of the car should be their own thing too, but the acquisition and purchasing and buying vehicles should be the most brainless fucking thing you should have to do in terms of, the buying process, because how it goes, and I know I sound like Captain fucking obvious here,
Yeah, yeah.
but it should really go from you have a car and then go from there into there are some things I don't quite like about this car. I would like something else. Or if you are a collector, or if you are just looking to acquire a new vehicle, whether you're getting a sports car or whether you're getting a new daily or whatever, um, it should go into, oh, I should start looking around at cars. What should I buy? And then take in a bunch of media. Hopefully, you're watching our videos and listening to our podcast,
Yep.
reading our articles, whatever. And then either settling on a decision, or going to then do your own drive homework and go drive a bunch of cars, figure out which one you want, and have an understanding within yourself of how much money I have to spend, whether you're selling a car to then get some money, or you have some money already, or you're going to finance, or whatever. And then you just go to a place that has the cars. You point at something and go, I would like that. And then they can either tell you, we have this on our lot, here it is, or it's going to be 4 to 6 weeks. We'll build your car. We'll let you know when it's ready. And that's really all it should come down to. And then tax, title, registration, all the stuff on the DMV end. That's all it should really be. There shouldn't be these hoops to jump through of worrying about, I got an acquisition or an allocation for a car. Hopefully they keep the price what they had already agreed to and what we fucking signed on.
Mm-hmm.
And dealerships don't try to pull a fast one. I mean, we live in a capitalistic, super greedy society anyways.
Yeah.
So the fact that this is a thing to begin with, it's saddening, but it's not that surprising. There are groups of individuals who view the flipping of cars or the trading of cars or dealers adding markup in a similar way that the gray market is viewed with collectible items, whether it be sneakers, watches, jackets, handbags, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Where well, you would be glad to, sell your car for a profit, wouldn't you? I mean, I would love to have bought at a good time and sold at a better time. That is true, but I am not a dealer. I'm not a manufacturer. You and I are individual people. So
Well, basically, where this came down to is one of the outlets, I think, outlined something really, really well that goes far beyond this issue, which he outlined it as this shows perfectly the best case scenario and worst case scenario of capitalism. Best case scenario, you have an individual that feels that their integrity is being undermined, and they have the option to just fuck off and completely leave a very major partnership that's decades long and go off and do their own thing. Worst case scenario is the flip side, where you have a manufacturer that, because they're a very large, majorly publicly traded company that's at this point has proven to itself that its only care is margins, bottom line, money, etc., etc. They start making decisions, stupid decisions in the name of profit margins and shareholder meetings that then shoot people in the foot and do stupid things. And that's kind of shows the best and worst.
And I also realized that I did tangent onto, the current, automotive.
Well, and that's fine. That's kind of why I'm mentioning this, is because the whole time I was looking at this, I'm like, this is a bummer, because they're also one of my favorite tech companies because of how good their warranty support is and how robust their cards and stuff are. But I view it similar to just what we're dealing with in the automotive world, where we have some shitty companies in some shitty places that should just go the way of the dodo. Namely, companies, I'm referring to a lot of the dealers, or a lot of the big dealers especially, where they have enough people involved and
Just direct to consumer, that
hmm
shit.
and then even some companies, because there's plenty of automotive companies that do plenty of shady shit, just like what I just explained here. Where, and I'm talking about the actual head company like Ford, Chevy, etc., the large conglomerate. Um,
Well, the conglomerate doesn't really, or the actual OEM doesn't have much like power in that. A lot of like all of that is coming down to the dealers.
yeah, I'm just saying that they're not innocent either. They have done shitty things as well at certain points.
Sure.
But the dealers are mainly what I'm referring to here, being that
Hmm.
a lot of them have so much control at this point over almost all aspects of your car. Like, for instance, um, I actually got to experience this with my local Kia dealer when I was trying to get my paint warranted because it was chipping off way faster than it should.
But that wasn't a Kia thing. That was a dealership thing.
Exactly, that's my point. Is that that
Or the dude that blew up his BRZ or whatever, or GT86 or
yes,
GR86. When Toyota corporate like got word of it, they were like, "Yeah, just fucking write him a check."
exactly. Well, that's kind of like what I experienced. Is I went to the
Yeah.
dealer, said this is happening. They had the dealer rep come and inspect it. He declined it, but that doesn't even go above like one level above the dealer, because he works with all the local dealers, and it's in his best interest and the dealer's best interest to keep shit down. And so you get cock blocked before you ever even get close to going up the corporate ladder.
Right.
Um,
Right. Well,
and
yeah, because the dealership is trying to provide the most impressive numbers to the OEM
yep,
of like, this is how many recalls or how many warranty claims we've had in whatever time period, whether it's monthly or quarterly.
yeah,
They're always trying to report to their boss, the OEM, with the best numbers possible, so then they can either keep their keep getting, or maintaining their number of monthly allocations on cars, or what, I don't know, whatever bonuses or whatever, like,
yeah,
whatever kind of financial incentive that dealership has. They're trying to maintain and grow from there, which, yes, I understand that sentiment. However, um, I start to have a problem when it becomes, when it comes to the potential loss of a customer, right?
yeah. And the funny thing is, I was basically thinking, like, man, the whole situation that happened in the tech world is basically the exact opposite. That's what's happening in the current consumer world here in the automotive outlet, because there it's the large end cock blocking a lot of the smaller end partners that they have and controlling absolutely everything about what they do. Here, you've got three stages. You have customer, dealer, and OEM, which the actual OEM or the manufacturer is usually mildly decent because they know how bad PR spin can be. And then
Mm-hmm.
where we get it is the dealer basically controls everything to do with your car.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you like it or not, you have to literally go to an entirely different dealer if you have a shady one in town, or if you have someone that gives you a very wrong diagnosis on like a warranty claim or something. Um, it's kind of ridiculous. And yeah, most of them, as we've talked about before, are just completely archaic and need to go the way of the dodo. That's why I wish, and I'm hoping that, like you said with Ford, that more OEMs and companies and even individuals and local individuals become a lot more vocal and start making bigger decisions to just rid the world of this, kind of like what happened in the tech world, because they made a decision based on their good conscience and on their want to just do good business,
Mm-hmm.
and that was simply because they were to the point where they didn't feel they could do good business to their customers.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish there was more of that. Which
We'll see.
I'm
We'll see what happens.
hoping the trend continues. Like,
Yeah.
it would be good to see that. It's funny because I've also seen, speaking of dealer things, like GM and Buick going back and forth with a lot of their dealers kicking back about their quote unquote electric future, where DM has offered to buy Buick dealers that refuse to go the new electric way. Excuse me, the new electric way of the brand.
Mm.
But that same offer is not available to like General Motors dealerships for some reason. Anyways,
Weird.
like, so GM's,
This is you're breaking news to me. So, um,
yeah, basically there was quite a few Buick dealerships that didn't want to sell electric cars, and GM corporate offered to buy them back, but that same offer did not extend to a couple GM dealers that were also not wanting to sell electric cars, and didn't extend there, and so they're obviously in a weird place trying to figure their shit out and eliminate dealers. Whereas Ford, the CEO of Ford, like you mentioned, is out and out said like, yeah, I would like to shift more towards a direct to consumer model.
Interesting. Very interesting.
It's all going different places.
Yeah.
We're in a massive transition at the moment.
Yeah.
Like trillions of dollars of transition if you think about the amount of companies involved with what's going to change over the next 10 to 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. But no, those were really the main two topics that like I saw and happen this week was the new Grand Tour with the RS4 and the 4.2 engine mention, and then just seeing that, just yet again bringing up feelings of the stupidity of companies and the bad side of capitalism.
Which is, that's not going to go away anytime soon, unfortunately.
Sadly, no. You would hope. This is
Wait, hold on. That wasn't all that happened since the last time we recorded a podcast, though.
Remind me.
The Mustang.
Oh yeah.
We didn't talk about the Mustang.
We mentioned it very briefly in the beginning when we were talking about manuals, but we didn't elaborate.
Yeah, but and I think you and I had a phone call about it, but we never actually talked about it on the podcast. So there's a new Mustang. How do you feel about it in the now, however long it's been? It's been 4 days.
4 days,
actually.
Yep.
Yeah. It's been 4 days. What do you think? What are your thoughts?
Well, since we last talked, I don't think my thoughts have changed much. I think the side profile's okay. The rear end looks decent. The front end looks a little ugh. The interior's intriguing. And actually, I've seen a couple more photos since we last talked of the new black. What was it called? The new.
It's not Blackwing.
Not Blackwing. The new fancy edition. Say it again.
Now it's just Blackwing.
Let's see. What the hell is it called? Dark Horse.
Dark Horse.
That's what it was. They're new. They'll have two.
That does sound like an FCA thing.
Kind of does.
As fuck.
I know. So yeah, they'll have two Dark Horse variants, one track only and one road.
I didn't know that. I thought it was just like it was EcoBoost 5.0, like the base Coyote, and then Dark Horse.
Yeah, so the Dark Horse will have two different types. It doesn't.
Cool.
It doesn't sound like they'll be that different in the end. Just one will be road legal, one will not.
Because they're also getting into GT3 Cup racing.
Okay, here we go. So yeah, the all that makes the Dark Horse the performance car for the enthusiast looking to drive their Mustang to the track, but more dedicated enthusiasts also have the option to order a Dark Horse S or Dark Horse R. These are two track-only variants that ratchet up the extreme nature of the car much further, with the R even race-prepped from factory.
Okay, I'm going to, because my mic picks up a lot of like keyboard stuff, I'm going to mute my mic.
Gotcha.
And I'm going to just do some Googling myself.
Yeah, go ahead. No, this looks super cool because I remember one of the things we talked about, as I'm just running over things in my head, is the new 5.0 getting like dual throttle bodies and a few of the things. Powers up a little bit, not quite to 500, but approaching it. Still has a manual.
People keep on saying 500 horsepower.
They do. It's also because the numbers haven't been officially released fully.
Gotcha. I just clicked on Ford's website, Ford Media Center. Benchmark for street and track Ford's. Okay, so I don't know if this is the thing that you've looked at or not. On Ford's website, they're saying projecting 500 horsepower. So I feel like we could probably bank on that.
Yeah.
They say projecting 500 horsepower a few times here. I'm just scrolling down to see like where they get into like the various options. Two dedicated track-only Dark Horse Mustangs powered by 5-liter V8 engines will only be available for racers and non-street use. Mustang Dark Horse S is designed for the weekend track day enthusiast, while Mustang Dark Horse R has been developed for racing. So, there's a previous paragraph that says Ford Mustang was born to race. The introduction of Mustang Dark Horse is part of a broader launch of 6 new racing Mustangs that will compete globally in a variety of series, including GT3, GT4, NASCAR, and NHRA Factory X Racing.
Interesting.
Yeah. I've seen like various photos of these white, new S650. That's the new chassis code. So that's one more thing for us to learn.
Yep.
S650 Mustangs that are very clearly race cars, with like full aero and stuff. Let's see. Yeah, the R here, Justin. I'm gonna send you this link. The Motor One,
Gotcha.
is the website. Um, is one of the Google results. Um, yeah, there's 6 different cars, that are all very clearly race cars. So that's not really a thing for, like, people aren't really gonna be able to buy them. You have to. I'm sure you have to be backed by a racing team or a program, to get one of these.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how much these are gonna cost. I mean, yeah. So there's. Oh, these are all renders though.
Yeah, these
The
aren't.
graphics are really good, but there's one that has like the NHRA project or whatever X thing.
Yeah.
That's very clearly a render. It looks like a high quality Forza Motorsports graphics
Yeah.
of it doing a burnout.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's probably going to be a $250,000 car.
Oh yeah.
Probably the basic one. I would be surprised if it was any less than 175, 150 range. But yeah, like very clearly GT3, GT4, like, cup racing.
Yeah. I mean, it looks super cool. I'm most curious because there really hasn't been too much teased about it yet. What the overall specs and actual design and whatnot of the non-track only Dark Horse will be like.
Yeah, like the one that people are actually gonna buy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because yeah, Mustang Dark Horse with available handling package is touted to be the most capable 5-liter V8 street legal Mustang ever. It touts improved aerodynamics, upgraded hardware, new software and tuning, and 6-speed manual or 10-speed auto available.
It's probably the same 10 speed.
Probably a similar one, but
Yeah,
very
would that be from like the Shelby GT500?
yeah, probably some type of a quote unquote detuned version of it. I would be surprised if it was anything special,
Mm-hmm.
like anything unique to this. Um, let's see. I do find it interesting, and I actually kind of like the fact that they didn't reuse an old name from the dead.
Yeah, getting kind of tired of this, of the, oh, let's just like, reuse an old name. I mean, for EVs, I kind of see it as more of a thing,
Mm-hmm.
because at that point we are pushing the ball forward still, but while paying homage
Yeah.
and heritage to something. Um, I'm looking at the Dodge Dart.
Yep. What was the new?
uh,
I just remembered. What was the new EV one they just came out with this week?
that's what I'm saying. The
Oh
Dart.
yeah, the new Dart EV. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
I'm scrolling down now. No, I'm sorry, not the Dart. The Hornet.
Hornet. That's what it was.
That's what I meant. I meant Hornet.
But like,
Um,
I'm. You can say
and they dropped. By the way, they dropped a social media post the fucking day after the new Mustang S650 was released.
oh man,
Well
bad
fucking
timing.
done, Dodge.
Bad
Well
timing.
done. I mean, if anything is on brand, is fucking the Stellantis, Fiat Chrysler Dodge,
Whatever.
umbrella. Yeah. Talk about fucking out of touch.
Well, yeah. So I'm very glad. To me, honestly, the car looks interesting enough, and I'm curious, really curious, being how much I know we both like the S550. Mainly the first gen S550, not the facelift.
I mean, I appreciate the aesthetics and the design of the pre-facelift S550. I haven't driven a facelifted one.
Yeah.
I would quite like to, and more things came out with the facelift. They actually had like a line lock they could get on the GTs, and uh, that's when they really started implementing the digital dash. And I think it's a really clean digital dash.
Yeah.
And speaking of digital dashes,
Uh,
the new one on the new S650 Mustang, like, it's cool. You can, I kind of fuck with the Fox Body throwback
Yeah.
skin that you can download and put on there. It kind of actually reminds me a little bit, not because it looks anything like it, but just more of like in concept. The old Saab night mode that you could like
Yeah.
have. Um, Maybe it's just like the replication of the green ambient lighting from cars of the late '80s, early '90s.
Yeah.
Uh, but like I would love to like be driving the new S650 and have that screen on at nighttime. I feel like that'd be the way to go.
Yeah, and I actually just remembered one of our other discussion points we had during our phone call, which was we don't necessarily like digital dashes. We both prefer manual gauges.
In sports cars.
Mhm. And looking at this, I'm glad they're doing little things like this, like, download a custom skin for your gauge cluster. I wish more of it was like that because there's no reason it shouldn't be like that. If you're going to have a goddamn screen, have it be customizable.
Yeah.
Really.
Well, they've been saying that the new S650 is the most customizable Mustang like out of the box. I guess it took them 60 years to realize how people customize their cars, and Ford, I think, maybe wants in on that a little bit.
Understandable.
They had a bunch of like wheel packages, different wheel design packages with colors and with stripe combinations and with the digital dash. Customize that. I think that's cool. I appreciate that more than uh, using technology or using screens as kind of a mask uh, to deceive people in the fact that like, oh well, it's using a screen so it's futuristic. Like it's not futuristic. You're just being fucking cheap. I think I mentioned this to you. I think it was on a phone call. I don't think it was a podcast.
Yeah.
Like how Tesla has done with with the Model S and the Model 3, especially that interior of how
Mhm.
just Spartan and bare bones. And people, at least in the beginning, and I kind of was duped into believing this at the beginning of how it did have like this Apple like future forward looking vibe to it. But like the more like I've looked at it and thought about it, it's just cost cutting is really what it is. Like the materials aren't like this exotic material.
No.
And that's just like on like the looking at interiors as a whole. The whole automotive landscape, has been going towards screens, and there aren't any real moving parts in them, and yes, you can display a bunch more information, but like that's all relatively cheap in the manufacturing process.
Yeah, screens aren't crazy, and even the processors and stuff to run them aren't crazy either. I agree with you. It's mainly a way to look futuristic for cheap. And I think, for instance, when Tesla was definitely, if not the forerunner, one of the forerunners of this trend.
Yeah.
It was cool at the time in 2010 through 2012. Like, that was really cool to look at this car with this massive, 12, 13-inch display in the center, because that was just not a thing.
It
And
was, I think, a 17. It was huge.
yeah, it's huge. And at the time, that was really cool. And I think the Model S did it a lot better than the Model 3, because the Model 3's interior is practically barren, besides the screen.
Yeah.
However, clearly, as I feel literally identical to you, that had a timestamp where it's like, yeah, that was cool for like the first couple of years, and then it was not.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, I mean, look at what Volvo has done with their interiors. I mean, this is a bit old news. They've been in their current design language for their exteriors and interiors for about what 4, 5, 6 years now.
mm-hmm.
But they found a way to design something elegantly and forward looking or forward looking, um, while also not coming off as cheap in any kind of way.
No, they feel fantastic. They're beautifully crafted interiors. Some of my favorite to detail, actually, like, because they're just so easy to make look amazing. Because the source material of any of the components, the screen, et cetera, is
Mm-hmm.
all just so good.
Yeah, and like I mean, their graphic user interface on their touchscreens and stuff, like Yeah, it's a little basic. It's a little simple,
Hmm.
but it's still clean. I think they pull. I think well, Kia tried to I think pull off a similar thing with like in your Stinger,
Yeah.
and I don't think they really hit the mark as well.
No.
It was still a bit cluttered and a little cheap looking by comparison,
Yes.
but I yeah, I still like I still fuck with all those like that. I still think they're rad. Um Anyways, back to Mustang though. I don't know if there's anything else to really say about Mustang. What it's 450 horsepower for the GT, I think.
Hmm.
Was it around there? And then like similar-ish torque, like 430 or something.
Yeah, pretty equilateral like that engine's always been. It's always been fairly close horsepower and torque, and
Mm-hmm.
honestly, it,
Is that an over? Is that what over square is? Or
yes, I think.
it's like the ratio of what the bore and the stroke is?
Yeah, and that engine's always been a solid performer in both those categories, where it's not just a big thumper. It does roar. It does move up there. It cuts the middle ground between like an Audi 4.2 and a big old fat like 7 liter any it
Yeah.
cuts the middle ground perfectly between those two, I think, where it has torque and horsepower. It revs high and it's got pull.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because and I don't know what the red line for the new 5.0 is, but the old one was like 7,500,
Yeah,
I think.
decently high for a slightly larger V8.
Oh yeah, I mean there are V6s that don't rev that high.
Yeah. Um
So
so no, super excited. I'm excited to see one in person, cuz especially with the interior, with the gauges and stuff, like I want to sit in one because it does look like they thought about certain things, like keeping, as you mentioned, the belt line low, and so it looks like the visibility will be pretty decent. Um,
yeah, they basically took the same for those that aren't aware of what the belt line is. I don't have the actual definition in front of me, but it's that line. If you're looking at the side profile of let's say a Mustang, the line that comes from like the top of the hood and that just goes rearward, how it's just one continuous line. That's what's called the belt line. And so on the older car, it was a little higher, which then compressed the size of the windows, which gave less greenhouse, like just visibility. So they lowered it a bit and they maintained the height of the roof, so they didn't like lower anything. Like
yeah,
they just opened it up a little bit more.
yeah. Which
If we're
for
talking, yeah. So if we're talking about design and aesthetics, and I just want to be able to say this on the podcast to put a timestamp on this,
for sure,
and put my stake in the ground. To me, it appears well. I mean, it kind of does look like a GTA car a
yeah,
bit, but if I wanted to break it down even more and get to more of the crux of it, it looks like it was a Mustang that was they took a designer from Stellantis or whoever designed the last, say, Dodge Charger, but then they went through the design house that then put out the Hyundai Elantra, like the current Elantra.
yeah,
Like the creases and like how sharp the corners are on it, like especially on the rear. They're just super mega sharp and angular,
yeah,
like on the new Elantra, um, and a lot of like just the more recent Hyundai Kias. But the front end, holy shit, dude! I don't know if that's a cooling thing if they're pulling a BMW on that with the beaver teeth. Um, It does look like a GTA car, though. It doesn't really look like it kind of looks like a Mustang, I guess. It like in print or in concept, but then in principle, it's just like I don't know.
yeah.
I'm not into it. I think that they peaked at the pre facelift S550.
Yep.
I think before then they were definitely on the rise. Like with the S197, they did a cool throwback to the '60s, and then they kind of evolved that for the post facelift S197,
Yep.
and then S550 came out and they knocked it out of the park, and then the facelift of that came out and it looked a bit frumpy, and now we're kind of continuing on that downhill or downward trajectory with the new S650 as far as the visual front end aesthetics. I think the rear is fine.
Yeah.
It does look a bit Elantra-esque actually on the rear. If you look at the rear of like an Elantra N
Yep.
and the rear of the new S650, there you could draw your own conclusions. But that's at least what I think.
Yeah, and like my biggest complaint with the front is the combination of the angular lines and just how much sheer grill there is. Like There is a lot of
And who knows, Ford
openings.
might come out with a thing that says later, like, oh, well, we really needed, in order to get this, get the more power out of, say, the Dark Horse, which then that design element needed to trickle down into the lower cars,
Yeah.
they for cost cutting purposes at least. That could have been an airflow and cooling thing. Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah. Could really be anything. Or they basically could have just decided, okay, for the higher performance models we want to do this style bumper design, well, it'll be cheaper for us to just manufacture all bumper designs that have more openings and then just don't throw extra oil coolers and shit on the lower models.
Yeah, that's very possible. I mean, they have to find ways to amortize it out. I mean, that's just what happens with bigger car companies, with Ford, GM, Toyota, etc.
Any of the above. No,
Hmm.
I'm just mainly curious to see one in person is really what it comes down to. Because as we've known before, there's a lot of times things can look better or worse in person.
Yeah, some cars. I know I have examples of cars that I do think look better in person than on camera, or at least in the press photos. Um, I've seen one 400Z go the other way on
Gotcha.
the highway. It was like the darker blue one.
Okay.
Um, I've seen a bunch of G80 BMWs, and those look just as bad now as when the concept even dropped for it. To me,
Yeah.
a lot of people, or more people at least, are warming up to that car. I don't agree. I don't agree with even the concept of warming up to that. I think bad design is bad design. It's bad when it comes out, and it's bad 30 years in the future.
It
Um,
ages like moldy cheese.
some people like moldy cheese, and I don't trust those kind of people. I just
Yeah.
don't like
Oh yeah.
them.
No, I agree. So I guess we'll see. But well, it's probably about that time.
We're rambling at this point. So, Justin, how are we doing on sweaters? Are we or hoodies? Is that coming soon?
Yes, we have a prototype that Gavin and I will have in hand this week. We'll take photos with it, make sure it feels good, and then if it feels good, we will shortly, no promise on exact date, but shortly have a way to purchase one, and then they'll actually be effectively made to order style. So you'll purchase it, and then it'll be a couple weeks later you will receive it.
Do we know what the sizing is going to be for those?
Effectively anything small through double, triple.
Double XL,
Mm-hmm.
probably.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I mean, we're gonna get them in hand and see if they feel good. And if you feel good, then you're probably going to look good because you feel good.
You got a little swagger in your
So,
step.
yeah, exactly. So, feel good, look good, be good. That's kind of the mantra that I have for that. So, yes, hoodies coming soon. I mean, the temperatures have dropped. They're gonna rise this week a little bit, but fall's coming. So, get yourself a boyfriend hoodie if you already have a boyfriend. If you don't have a boyfriend, you can get yourself a hoodie and stay warm anyways. It's really like in the winter months, you need an external heat source. So, um, if you don't have a boyfriend, you can still buy our hoodie and just bundle up and be warm. Or if you do have a boyfriend, buy one for yourself and then buy one for them so you don't keep stealing their hoodies.
The hoodie can be your boyfriend.
Or if you have a boyfriend, you can buy one for you and buy one for him or whatever. I don't give a shit. Buy our hoodies. um, hoodies coming soon. www.exhibitionofspeed.com is the place to go find those. Um, we have a video that we're going to be shooting in a couple of weeks. We're super stoked for. We've talked about it before a couple episodes back, so if you want to go listen to that, you absolutely can. And I don't know, fucking yeah, feel good, look good, be good. That's the vibe. Um, until next time, I guess. Unless if you have anything else to contribute, Justin.
No, not really. You
Is
nailed
that
it.
is that fuck yeah. um, yeah. Until next time, I've been Gavin,
And I've been Justin.
and this has been a remote episode of the Exhibition of Speed podcast. Good night.
Good night.